morning. I'm sleep deprived. Is anybody else sleep deprived? I need an IV of coffee for sure. So I know a lot of you are probably familiar with Andy Stanley, and he shared one of the most amazing quotes several years ago that has just stuck with me forever that says, "You do for one what you wish you could do for everybody." And I think there's power in those words. I think the power of those words could change the world if we allow them to. If we live by that principle of let's do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. And those words changed my world. So in the second grade, I met Mrs. McKinney. And I was going through some serious darkness at that age, and nobody knew about it because as a kid you become a good secret keeper. But one day she called me into her classroom, and she pulled the desk up just right across from me. You know, you remember those, I don't know if they still have them in school. I'm only, 18, but you know those desks and you can put them right across each other so they have the thing underneath where you slide your books underneath and you got your little pen. Do they still have those in school? Okay. All right, so I'm not that old. Anyway, so she pulled that desk right across from me, and I'll never forget it. And she looked at me, and she made eye contact with me, and she was crying. And I was acting out in class. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm sure it wasn't because I was bored. And I have no idea the words that she said to me. I don't remember anything that happened after that. But I remember second grade, her sitting across from me, looking me in the eyes and crying. And I remember knowing that she cared. And not every kid needed that, but I did. And she did for one what she wished she could do for everyone. In the sixth grade, I met Miss Moore, and she made us write poetry, and I thought poetry was stupid. She refused, though, to let me settle on that, and because of her, today I'm a writer, and I get to share inspiration with others, all because she made me start writing stupid poetry, right? She refused to let me make excuses. She made me believe in myself. She did, for one, what she wished that she could do for everyone. In the seventh grade, I met Mrs. Shoemaker. Sorry. She was my math teacher, okay? And I did not think we were going to get along because math is not from the Lord, okay? True story. It's still not. Still not. So, maybe hard to believe, but I was the class clown, okay? And I made everybody laugh in class and all around me because here's the thing about that. If I did that first, then you wouldn't be able to see inside my brokenness, okay? If I made you laugh, then everything else would just go away, right? Or so we believe that. But she saw right through me. She saw right through my crap, and she took me underneath her wing quickly. And I remember the first time I ever went to her house for the weekend, I was just so amazed because we woke up on Saturday morning and we did this thing that I thought was crazy. We sat around the kitchen table and had breakfast as a family. I'd never experienced that. And so I remember exactly what we ate. We ate cinnamon rolls right out of a can. They probably didn't even taste that good, but I didn't care because I had never done anything like that. I'd never sat around with a family. And I mean, we had Sunday dinners at my grandparents, and you sat at the table, but that was only because there was a gajillion of us, and that was the only place to sit. But as a family, I'd never experienced that. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'd seen that in the movies, but never, really in reality. And she loved me in a time where I didn't think that I was lovable, in a time that I didn't think anybody could possibly love me. So she did for one what she wished she could do for everyone, right? So in 2008, I wrote in my journal, I still have that journal to this day, and I asked God to send me a mentor. I asked him to send somebody to walk through life with me. I knew that I wanted something different than where I was. I was just a baby Christian, but I was still jacked up, and I had absolutely no idea, what I was doing. And he answered that prayer super quick. I met my friend Jennifer White at a church here in Branson. Actually, I lived here in Branson for 14 years. She was a Louisiana transplant. Her and her husband had moved here in a home that they had built together. And she was just way, way too nice for me. Okay? She kept bugging me with things like, "How are you doing?" And, right? And then she'd be like, "Can I pray with you?" And then she'd be like, "Tell me about you." And I wanted to say, leave me alone. And I remember she took me out to breakfast one day for my birthday, and she brought me a gift. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. This lady didn't know me from Adam, and she bought me a gift. And I knew there had to be an ulterior motive, right? I didn't trust her. There was something about her. I couldn't trust her. And then I was in the hospital for a minute with some health issues. And after I got out of the hospital, she was still there. She was still annoying me. And she invited me to spend the weekend at her house. And so I was like, okay, why not? I don't have anything else to do. I'm just sitting here living in self-pity, so I might as well do something else, okay? And so we pulled in, right? We pulled into this private gate. I knew this was not going to go well, okay? Because I don't spend the night with people who have private gates, okay? So then we get through the private gate, and then we pull up to this house. And it was not a house, okay? It was a lodge with its own zip code. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? And this crazy lady who wouldn't leave me alone had a private gate, okay? We did not fit in the same category at all. I was starting to convince myself that maybe she was a serial killer. Like, she was going to bring me to this crazy house with its own zip code, and she was going to lock me under the stairs, and I was never getting out. And I was convinced because she was from Louisiana and had that southern accent, while she was doing it, she was going to say, bless your heart. But then something cool happened. She started to cook dinner. And she asked me to get beans out of her pantry. The pantry was the size of my bedroom. Okay? But something cool happened because when I opened the pantry door, I saw something I never, ever expected. Best Choice canned goods. That did it for me right there, okay? Because I thought, this lady has a house with her own zip code, okay? And she's eating Best Choice beans, all right? So we're going to be okay. She's not going to kill me. But for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to trust somebody, to trust her, and to break down these walls around my heart, because she chose to love me with the love of Christ. And she wouldn't give up on me. I'm sure she wanted to, several times. Time and time again, though, she would prove to me that she was a safe person. And time again, as she would do that, I would reveal more vulnerability. I'd never been able to do that before in my life. I spent more time in that house with its own zip code, crying, praying, letting go of deep hurts. I could tell stories all day long. But I remember one specific night sitting in that house. We were sitting on our couch. I was sharing something. I don't remember what it was I was sharing, but I was crying. And here's the thing about when I cry. I can't cry like normal people. Okay? When I cry, like I got snot bubble tears, like nothing you ever seen, okay? The next day, I look like Rocky Balboa. I can't cry like normal people. I just can't. I've given up trying. I was crying. I had some serious snot bubbles going on, and I'll never forget what she did next. She handed me her sock so I could blow my nose. Because she didn't have any tissues available in her house with its own zip code. I think the sock was clean, though. I think it was clean. But that's true friendship, right? That is true friendship. When somebody hands you a sock to blow your nose, y'all, that is true friendship, okay? You do for one what you wish you could do for everyone, okay? So in August of 2009, I had hit a bottom in my life. I had broken a lot of walls down, but there was still a lot of walls built up. There was still a lot of healing that I needed. And I had experienced so much loss that year in a matter of months that I couldn't figure out what my reality was anymore. I was consumed by depression. I was consumed by darkness. And I wanted to take my own life. I was suicidal. And in stepped Jennifer White, this crazy lady who wouldn't stop loving me, who loved me too much to let me stay where I was. And one intervention later, led by this quiet, gentle Southern woman who says, bless your heart, with a pantry the size of my apartment, I checked into a residential discipleship program right here in Branson, Missouri. And I spent the next year there allowing God to break down walls that I had built up over the course of my life. I allowed him to set me free from a lot of things. This woman had no obligation to me whatsoever. She could have dropped me off that day and said, I'll see you around. See you in a year. Been nice knowing you. And she never did. Instead, she called, she visited, she wrote letters, she prayed, because she's one of the most powerful prayer warriors I've ever met. She chose to love me. And I am very aware, y'all, that I'm not always easy to love. Okay? Ask the 5 ladies I've been staying with this weekend. Okay? Sorry, Carol. Oh, I lost my place. I don't even know where I'm at. I burp a lot. This is not in my notes. I'm just going to tell this story real quick. I burp a lot. I have issues. I know. It's fine. But Carol's like, really? Really? You're very uncouth. And I'm like, that's the coolest word ever. Will you say it again? So instead of saying, excuse me, I just say, sorry, Carol. So whenever you guys burp again, because we all do it, I just stop saying excuse me and just say sorry, Carol. I think it's more freeing. So just when you let it out, just say sorry, Carol. Sorry, Carol. All right, I'm lost. I don't know. Anyway, so here's the moral of the story. She did for me what she wished she could do for everybody, right? Here we are, yet 11 years later. She still prays for me. She still prays with me. And every now and again, when I need it, she'll offer me a sock. 11 years later, she is still showing me the love of Jesus. She did for one what she wished she could do for everybody. In 2007, I met Sandy Stewart, and this guy loved Jesus like nothing I'd ever seen. And he and his wife, Kay, they prayed over me, they prayed with me, they led a life group at church that I was involved in, and they sat around the dinner table and showed me what it was like to honor one another in marriage. Again, I didn't live in a world where I saw that. But he showed me something even more powerful than that. And so from someone who had experienced multiple trauma from multiple men in my lifetime, I struggled with some severe rejection, some severe abandonment, and trusting men was not a thing that I handled well. But he showed me that not all men are created equal. And he treated me like a daughter. And he was not afraid to remind me who I was in Christ. And he definitely was not afraid to call me out when I wasn't living up to that identity. Sandy and my dad were both diagnosed with the same kind of cancer by the same doctor in the exact same week. Wow. My dad lived 6 months. Sandy lived 3 years. I watched Sandy choose life over and over and over and over again. And I sat with him the day before he died in the hospital. And he couldn't speak, but he had this little marker board, and he would write you notes on it. And he asked me to read him the Bible. And but he was more focused on, he wanted to make sure the nurse that was there that day knew Jesus. This guy was at the very end of his life. He was going to die in less than 24 hours. And he still wanted to make sure that everyone he talked to knew Jesus. He did for one what he wished he could do for everyone. I walked into a church right here in Branson in 2006. And the first person to greet me was this Indian guy with long gray hair at the front door. And he gave me a hug. And men did not hug me. But I instantly felt okay. I'd never felt okay like that before. And I knew that there was something different about this guy. And he led worship at the church. And I remember thinking to myself, there's something different about this guy. He was the same person every single time I saw him, whether we were at church or whether we were eating breakfast at Clocker's Cafe, right here in downtown. If you guys have never eaten it, it's good. But I would watch him interact with people, and he was who he said he was. He wasn't anybody different, and a lot of times we experience that in church, right? We experience somebody different on Sunday than we do Monday through Saturday. But I would watch him interact with people, and he was who he said he was. And he wouldn't get up on stage every Sunday morning and hide behind his guitar and then pretend to be somebody that he wasn't. He was Teddy, both behind the pulpit and in front of it. And I remember thinking to myself, if that's what following Jesus looks like, I want that. And so I chose that. I chose Jesus because Ted chose to love me right where I was. He didn't wait for me to get my act together before he offered me grace. He didn't wait for me to get my act together before he offered me truth and love. He did it right in the midst of my brokenness, which is where we all need it. Right in the midst of my sin. And because he showed me the love of Christ, I chose Christ. He did for one what he wished he could do for everyone. And when my dad died in 2009, Ted drove 3 hours to lead his funeral. And at his funeral, 5 people came to know the Lord. In a tiny little church called Open Door Fellowship in Bland, Missouri. Ted came up to me after the service, and I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "Your dad did more in his death than he ever did for people in his life." And he was right, because the Lord wastes nothing, right? It says the Lord will restore what the locusts have eaten. That's the power of one. In 2009, when Jennifer White decided it was time for my intervention, she called the one person that she knew I would listen to, Ted Burden. And he looked me in the eyes that day and he said, "I'm not your dad, I'm not your grandpa, but I'm going to talk to you like I am. And I love you too much to watch you stay where you are." He did for one what he wished he could do for everyone. In 2009, after making the decision to get baptized, tell the world that I really wanted to live my life for Christ, it was Ted who baptized me. And then one day he handed me his favorite guitar and he said, "Here, it's yours." And that was the same guitar that he played on stage when I said, "I think I want to follow Jesus." And I still play it today as I lead and play worship. And I sing to the Lord with the power of music. He did for one what he wished he could do for everyone. And someday when I get married, and I am currently accepting applications for a husband, just put that out there. I live in a really small town, so unless I date my cousin, it's slim pickings. So, it's a true story. Pray for me, y'all. Someday when I get married, though, it's going to be Ted who officiates my wedding. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Because it's the power of one. When that comes to play in our lives, that's what changes the generations. Miss McKinney told me I mattered when I didn't believe I did. And her words have stuck with me since the 2nd grade. And now I get the opportunity to remind other people that they matter. Mrs. Moore made me write that stupid poetry book. And now I write books and blogs and songs that remind others that they too have a voice, that they matter. Jennifer White chose to love me when I made it hard. She chose to walk with me through battles that I was afraid to fight. She showed me that freedom in Christ is possible. And now I get the opportunity to do the same for others. Sandy Stewart chose to invest in me because he saw something that I couldn't see in myself. Because he knew that I needed a father's love, and the Father used him to show me that. Ted Burden inspired me to walk away from the world and live for Christ, and he didn't even know he was doing it. And now I get to pour the love of Jesus into others. Their choice, yes. Their one choice to do for one what they wished they could do for everyone is changing the generations. Yes. Never underestimate the power of doing for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Because when you do it, it creates a domino effect. You do it for that one does it for another, that one does it for another, so on. And generations are changed. So my question to you this morning is, who is your one? Thanks for letting me share.